Chapter 1: The Signal in the Silence. The first time Eli saw Mara, it was during a solar flare storm. They were both strangers on the research team sent to the Vorell Mountains, an isolated region at the edge of the world where the air crackled with static and rumors of strange sightings clung to every rock face. The team was assembled under the cover of a geological expedition, but they all knew the real reason. A signal, faint but deliberate, had pulsed from the mountains for 2 months straight. It wasn't natural. It wasn't noise. It was a call. Mara wasn't like the others. She didn't flinch at the storm's electric flashes, nor did she speak much. But Eli noticed her notebook, black leather, scuffed, and filled with equations far beyond what their official mission required. He'd spent years in remote observatories, cataloging cosmic noise, mapping quantum echoes, but nothing prepared him for how Mara made silence feel sacred. They barely spoke during the first week in the mountains, but they worked near each other. She charted mineral samples with a kind of devotion Eli only saw in people who were running from something. He wanted to ask what, but never did. Then came the tremor. It wasn't on any seismograph. No tectonic shift, no recorded quake, but they all felt it. A low hum through their bones, like the mountain itself was growling. The trees shivered, the air thickened, and Mara finally looked scared. That night, Eli found her packing her gear in the communal tent. "You leaving?" he asked, not bothering to mask the disappointment in his voice. "I'm going up," she said simply. He blinked. "Up the ridge? Now?" She nodded, clutching the notebook. "The signal's stronger now. I think something's waking up. I need to see it. I think it sees me." "Mara, come if you want." He didn't hesitate. They left before dawn, just the two of them, while the rest of the team slept off their exhaustion. The climb was brutal. Sharp winds tore at their coats, and Eli's lungs screamed from the altitude. But Mara pressed on with the resolve of someone chasing truth, or maybe running from guilt. It was at 3,200 meters when the static began again, not from their radios, from the air itself. "I hear it," Eli said, clutching the jagged stone beside him. "So do they," Mara whispered, her eyes scanning the tree line. "What?" A scream tore through the valley. Not human, not animal, something old and wet and wrong. The kind of scream that rewires your instincts and makes you forget language. Eli's breath caught. Mara grabbed his arm, and for the first time, he felt her fingers tremble. "We have to move," she said. They stumbled higher, not stopping until the ridge opened into a strange plateau, flat, silent, littered with symmetrical stones arranged like a forgotten ritual. In the center stood a monolith, smooth, black, humming. "The signal," Mara said, stepping toward it. "Mara, we should go." "No," she whispered. "I know this. I've dreamed this." Before he could stop her, she touched it. The hum stopped. Everything stopped. And then they came. Figures emerged from the shadows, not walking, not gliding, just appearing. Tall, twisted, half light, half void. Eyes like sunspots leaking heat. They surrounded the pair silently, forming a circle around the monolith. Eli stepped in front of Mara. "Stay behind me." But Mara didn't move. She was staring at one of the creatures. Or maybe it was staring into her. And then the creature bowed. The others followed. Eli didn't breathe. "Mara," he whispered, "what did you do?" She looked at him, eyes wide with some between awe and terror. "I think they know me." Chapter 2: What the Mountain Remembers. Eli didn't believe in fate. He believed in data, in frequencies, in spectrums too narrow for the human ear to catch. But now, surrounded by inhuman figures who bowed to Mara as if she were their herald, every rational rule he held began to unravel. Didn't speak. The beings, they didn't need to. Their presence pressed into Eli's chest like atmospheric pressure. He felt Mara's breath steady, like she was calming down in their presence, not panicking. It was terrifying. "What are they?" Eli asked, barely louder than the wind. Mara stepped toward them. "They're from the deep field," she said. "Beyond the silence." Eli turned to her, stunned. "You mean space?" She nodded slowly, her eyes not leaving the nearest creature. "Not just space. Beyond time. They live in a kind of echo." "And how do you know that?" Mara finally turned to him, her voice trembling. "Because I've been hearing them since I was a child. In dreams. In migraines. They called me here." Eli wanted to shout, to shake her, ask how long she had known, why she hadn't told anyone, but a part of him already knew the answer. Who would believe her? The tallest of the beings raised a limb, not quite an arm, not quite a tentacle, and reached toward Mara's chest. She didn't flinch. Instead, she unzipped her jacket and pulled from inside her shirt a thin shard of black stone, almost like the monolith, but smaller, portable. "They gave me this when I was 8, she said, in a coma, after I fell into a frozen lake." Eli stared at it, horrified. "You never told anyone?" "I was 8, Eli. They told me I'd imagined it. Doctor said it was brain hypoxia, but the stone never left me, and now it's reacting." The creature touched the shard, the air broke. There's no better way to describe it. It fractured like a mirror, shattering in complete silence. The ground beneath them turned translucent, revealing what looked like constellations burning beneath the surface. Time hiccuped. Eli staggered back, eyes wide. The other beings began to move now, still without sound, spinning slowly around the monolith. Symbols flared to life along its surface, glyphs neither human nor alien, symbols that pulsed with meaning and fear. Eli felt his skin crawl. "Mara, we shouldn't be here. This is a machine, or a weapon, or a memory," Mara whispered. The glyph shifted faster. "It's remembering me." Before he could stop her, Mara stepped inside the circle. The creatures made way for her. Eli hesitated for only a second before following. The moment he crossed into the circle, sound returned, but not the kind they knew. It was layered voices, thousands, maybe millions, speaking in reverse, in harmony, in static. He clutched his ears, but it was inside him, not around him. "Make it stop," he shouted. Mara didn't move. The monolith flashed. And they were somewhere else. It wasn't teleportation. It wasn't a dream. They were standing in the same clearing, but younger. Trees were smaller, the air warmer, the sky was dust-colored. And a little girl, barely 8, stood beside the monolith, crying. "That's me," Mara said. The girl reached out, touched the monolith, and vanished. "This is your memory?" Eli asked. "No," Mara whispered. "It's the mountains." Another flash, a different time. Bodies around the stone, human bodies, old uniforms, military tech, half buried in moss. "They've been here before," Eli said. "Decades ago, maybe longer. And they tried to control it. Look, the memory played out like a projection. Soldiers trying to move the monolith, set explosives. The moment they did, screams, horrible, wet screams, then nothing." Back in the present, Eli collapsed to his knees. Blood trickled from his nose. "You can't take this," he gasped. "It's rewriting us." Mara steadied him. "It doesn't want us dead. It wants us to remember." The beings watched, still silent, still waiting. The shard in Mara's hand pulsed once, then melted into light, gone. The monolith powered down. The symbols faded. And then the creatures vanished, like fog. Just the two of them remained. "We have to go back," Eli said, his voice weak. Mara nodded. But something had changed in her. Her eyes were distant, determined. "This wasn't just about me," she said. "They showed me what humans tried to do, what they'll try again. This needs to be protected." He looked at her, afraid. "You mean hidden?" "I mean defended." A long silence fell between them. By the time they returned to the base, the rest of the team was gone. Chapter 3, The Vanishing Team. When Mara and Eli descended from the ridge, the sun was setting in streaks of red and rust. The plateau faded behind them, its impossible monolith and vanished creatures dissolving like a fever dream. But the weight of what they'd seen hung thick in the air. The camp was silent, not quiet, silent. No footsteps, no wind, no hum of electronics, no idle chatter from the comms tent, just stillness, like the mountain had swallowed time. Their boots crunched over frost-hardened moss as they stepped into the heart of the encampment. Tents were intact. Lanterns still glowed faintly. Mugs of tea sat half drunk. Equipment screens blinked idly, but not a soul in sight. "They wouldn't all leave," Eli said. "Not like this." "They didn't leave," Mara murmured, scanning the ground. "They vanished." She knelt beside the fire pit. Fresh ash, a still warm log. Eli backed away, heart pounding. "You think the creatures did this?" "No, the monolith showed us what happens when humans try to interfere." She stood, eyes locked on the ridgeline behind them. "They're not violent, not unless provoked. But if they didn't take the team, what did?" Before she could answer, a crackle of static burst from the main comm tower. They ran. Inside the communications tent, the base console blinked with an incoming message. Audio only. Eli hit play. The voice that came through made his stomach knot. "This is Dr. Felix Arden. Something's wrong. People are acting strange. I think Mara triggered something. They're Static tore across the feed, then a whisper. The mountain knows her. The mountain wants her back. Then silence. Eli stared at Mara. They think this is your fault. She turned away, voice brittle. Maybe it is. That night they didn't sleep. They locked themselves in the geology tent, using the satellite uplink to try and reach the central base. No reply. Power flickered erratically. Their oxygen recycler, though still humming, wheezed under the sudden drop in pressure. Something had shifted. Something planetary. At 3:17 a.m., someone or something walked past their tent. Eli shut off his breath. The steps were slow, heavy, too heavy for a human. But they didn't stop. When dawn came, they found strange glyphs burned into the snow outside their shelter, symbols like the ones on the monolith. Except these were wrong, warped, angry. Eli crouched near them. These weren't left by the creatures we saw. No, Mara agreed. Something else is here. By mid-morning, they made a decision. Descend to the base station 40 kilometers south, where backup gear and escape vehicles were stored. It would take them a full day on foot. There was no time to wait for rescue. They packed light, took only essentials, food, water, survival gear, and the notebook. Mara clutched it like a lifeline. They hiked in silence, descending through jagged switchbacks and fog-choked trails. Around noon, it began to snow, thick, suffocating flakes that deadened all sound. Then they heard the scream. It echoed from the trees. Eli froze. That was human. They ran toward it, against instinct, toward the sound, and then they found Arden, or what was left of him. His body was crumpled at the base of a cliff, eyes wide, mouth open in frozen terror. But there was no blood, no wounds, just stillness, like he had died of fear alone. Mara knelt beside him, closed his eyes. He tried to protect the team. He was my friend once. Eli stepped back. We need to go, now. They resumed their descent, but the mountain had shifted again. Paths they knew were twisted, trails gone, trees moved, shadows stretched too long. Night fell before they reached the base station. It should have been empty, but the lights were on. Inside, warm air, buzzing monitors, fresh footprints, but no voices. Then, they found the body. It was Dr. Lena Khoury, face down in the main control room, clutching a syringe. Her notes, scrawled on scattered pages, made Eli's blood run cold. Mara isn't Mara anymore. She talks in her sleep, ancient words. She walked into the monolith and came out wrong. She's not our Mara. Mara rid them in silence, then whispered, They think I brought something back with me. Eli turned toward her. Did you? She didn't answer. That night, they found footage, security camera logs from the day they'd climbed the ridge. It showed Mara alone, standing at the edge of the clearing, speaking to the creatures, but there was no sign of Eli. He hadn't been in the footage at all. Chapter 4, The Echo Between Worlds. Eli stared at the screen, breath caught in his throat. The footage played again. Mara standing before the monolith, her arms raised slightly, her voice moving, lips shaping sounds no human language had ever contained. But he wasn't there. The angle of the shot covered the whole clearing. He should have been there. He remembered standing beside her, holding her arm, feeling the heat of the creature's eyes on him. But the video said otherwise. Mara turned to him slowly. Her face was pale. This doesn't make sense. You were alone, Mara, he said quietly. The camera saw only you. That's not possible. You were with me. He nodded barely. Unless something took my place. The room grew colder. They spent the next hours scouring the station, reading what little logs were left. Most had been deleted or corrupted. What remained painted a picture of a slow unraveling, paranoia, night terrors, a creeping suspicion that the expedition had uncovered something alive inside the mountain, something that could rewrite memory. The last entry was from Dr. Khoury. They don't trust Mara anymore, but I think she's the key. If she can remember what the monolith showed her, maybe we can undo this. But the others, they're planning something. Eli, Mara whispered. I think they were going to kill me. He didn't respond. Couldn't. His thoughts swirled. Her voice in the video, the vanished team, the symbols that bled into reality, and the awful suspicion crawling beneath his skin. Had he really come back with her from the ridge? Or was he still up there, screaming in a frozen echo? We need to go to the authorities, he said finally. Let them see the footage. Let them run tests. Mara stared. And say what? That we climbed a mountain, touched an alien monolith, and I started speaking in tongues while our entire team vanished? They'll want answers. No, she said, her voice flat. They'll want someone to blame. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Outside, the wind howled. They left the base station at dawn. A storm was moving in, but they had no choice. 2 days on foot through unstable terrain, with only emergency rations and Mara's notebook for guidance. Her notes had begun to change. Symbols appeared in the margins, ones she didn't remember writing. Eli kept a close eye on her, but also on himself. He'd begun to dream of the monolith, of speaking to the beings in the dark, of floating, disembodied, above his own body. Watching himself walk beside Mara like a shadow, was he real or a memory the mountain created? On the second night, Mara woke screaming. She clutched her head, tears streaming down her face. They're inside now. I can't tell what's me and what's not. Eli held her, arms tight, heartbreaking. You're still you. But he wasn't sure anymore. The forest thinned. Civilization returned. Signal returned. They reached the edge of the logging road and flagged down a transport vehicle. The driver eyed them warily, their ragged clothes, their hollow eyes. At the outpost, medics took Mara in, gave her blankets, took her vitals. Eli gave his name, explained everything, or tried to. He expected disbelief. He didn't expect to be handcuffed. The local police took him in first, then federal agents, then the silence. The footage from the base station was gone. Wiped, the bodies never recovered. The logs corrupted. Only his voice remained, telling a story no one could verify. Only her name remained on the manifest, not his. They charged him with murder. Mara was placed in observation, declared mentally unstable. Her drawings, strange symbols, spirals, and eyes were sealed as evidence. Eli sat in his cell, days later, staring through glass, hearing her voice in his head. The mountain remembers us, Eli, but it doesn't forgive. And then, just before the trial, Mara disappeared. She vanished from the hospital. No cameras, no trace, just an empty bed and a single black stone on the pillow. Chapter 5, The Witness and the Void. Eli's trial became a media storm. The disappearance of the Vorell Mountain expedition. The lone survivor, Dr. Eli Rohn. The missing woman, Mara Ellen. No bodies, no survivors, no footage. Just fragments of a story that made no sense. And a man who spoke of alien contact, fractured time, and memory echoes like a prophet or a madman. He sat, shackled, in a courtroom filled with flashing cameras and dead stares. His defense tried to plead trauma, psychosis brought on by oxygen deprivation. His notes, his recordings, his desperate retellings, all dismissed as fiction. But Eli didn't defend himself. Not anymore. He wasn't sure who he was defending. In the long hours between hearings, in his gray, solitary cell, he'd begun to dream again. Of the mountain, of the monolith, of Mara. Sometimes in those dreams, she came to him, dressed in black, her hair loose, her eyes glowing with something inhuman. Other times, she whispered his name through the floor, like a secret the stone itself wanted to keep buried. He remembered holding her hand as the glyphs burned into the monolith. He remembered the moment time hiccuped, the moment he blinked and found himself no longer beside her, but watching her. Had the mountain replaced him? Had it stolen a piece of him and sent something else back? What if you're not the one who came back down, he thought. What if you're the echo? On the final day of trial, the court declared him guilty of the presumed murder of Mara Ellen, as well as criminal negligence in the deaths of the remaining 8 team members. Sentence: life in a maximum security facility. And yet, the story didn't end there. 6 weeks after the verdict, a signal was picked up. Brief, faint, identical to the original Vorell anomaly, this time from the center of New Tokyo. Just 3 words: I am here. The signal came again, this time from northern Canada, then from the Indian Ocean. Always the same words. Always just before major electrical failures and regional memory blackouts. Governments denied the connection. But the few who believed, they started watching. In the cell, Eli waited. Time didn't flow in a straight line anymore. Days blended into one another. Sometimes he'd wake up knowing things he hadn't known before. Coordinates. Phrases and languages that didn't exist. Symbols he drew in his sleep. One day he woke with blood on his palms. Etched into the floor were the same spirals Mara used to draw. His cell cameras captured nothing. Then, one fog-wrapped morning, a woman appeared at the edge of the prison yard. She wore a black coat. Her hair hung damp over her face. She stared at the walls like she could see through them. The guards saw nothing, but Eli did. Mara. He screamed for hours, begged to speak, to write, to be let outside. No one listened. That night, the facility lost power. When they opened Eli's cell the next morning, he was gone. No trace. Only a black shard on the pillow, still warm, humming softly. Some say he escaped. Others say the mountain took him back. But strange things began happening across the world. People who spoke in symbols, who claimed to have seen the stone, who vanished for days and returned changed. And in the background, a signal hummed. The same frequency, the same voice, a whisper across the dark. We are memory. We are echo. We are not done.